Hi everyone, welcome back to Poetology. When I was at my parents', I thought I would go through my shelves that I have in their cellar to pull out all the books on writing and creativity, and I thought I would have a few of those books and I would be able to review all of them in one video. But as it turns out, I had 3 piles of books on writing and creativity, and it's a little too much to review everything. So I selected my 5 favorite books on creativity and writing. And here they are. So the first one I would like to review is the classic Bird by Bird by Lamott. And that is the first book I read on writing, I think, or one of the very first in any case. And it helped me understand something about the writing process, which is that you don't need to master everything. You don't need to have a precise plan of how you're going to write. You don't need to have it down to the last details. All you need is to take a page and start somewhere. Start somewhere and see where it takes you, and then move on to the next step, and the next, and the next, until the writing takes shape. It was a very good way of de-dramatizing the writing process and understanding that you just have to go and practice, which sounds very obvious to me now, but at the time I thought you had to know exactly what you were doing, and that sometimes prevented me from doing more than what I was writing at school. And the first time I tried a writing project on my own, that book really helped me get through blockages. And it's also full of anecdotes and very enjoyable. The second book I have is Writing as a Way of Healing by Louise DeSalvo. And this is a book I read a little later, and it's a book I like to return to even now, because it talks about how to use writing as a therapeutic process, how to write memoir especially, so write about your life in a way that is conducive to health and healing, rather than in a way that will just make you feel even worse. And it talks you through the entire process, how to begin, how to get through the middle part of your project, and how to complete it. And it also has a section on writing about the wounded body, how to go through grief, that sort of thing. It's a book I will come back to in later videos, because I want to write more about how to write for well-being and how to write for health. There's a quote here, I'll read it out to you. "Writing House of Spirits," says Allende, "saved my life. She began her career for the purely private motive of expressing her grief as a form of self-care. Through writing," she said, "the world became more tolerable. Living with myself was more tolerable too." So writing with these goals in mind is what this book is about. The next one is very interesting. It's not about writing, it's about reading. It's about creative reading by Padgett. This book is no longer easily available, but you may be able to find second-hand copies. And it is different from any other book I have read on creativity. It invites you to read texts in a completely new way. For example, incorporating unconscious errors that you make while you are reading in unusual places, reading things that you would not normally read by yourself, such as, I don't know, a gardening magazine or a book about motorbike riding. Also gives you exercises to read texts in different directions. So for example, instead of reading from left to right, you try reading from right to left, or you try reading in a diagonal, or you try reading in a circle from the first word in the middle of the page, radiating outwards. And while these can seem a little strange, they can also help you find pleasure in reading, not just as a productive activity, but as a process of discovery and something that remains fun. And then, in turns, it can help you write in a more creative and relaxed way without putting too much pressure on linear thinking. It must have emboldened me, because I've underlined a lot of passages with ink, which is not something I normally do in my books. So I guess the whole spirit of the book prompted me to do things I do not normally engage in. Ron Padgett is a poet, among other things, and that really transpires. I think this book is especially good if you teach creative writing, or you teach students who are learning to read but are experiencing difficulties, and also just for yourself to experiment and give yourself space. But it can give you a whole different way of approaching texts and reading, and by extension, writing also. The next one is Twyla Tharp, The Creative Habit. And Twyla Tharp is a dancer, she is a choreographer, so that's not at all the type of creative activity that I engaged in, but I really loved that book when it came out, and I still like to look at it regularly. First of all, the book is quite beautiful. I enjoyed how she shares her own experience with creativity and encourages you to try exercises. She has really good ideas about how to have a morning ritual where one thing leads to another without you needing to make decisions. And also I love her idea of the creative box, where you collect all sorts of objects that constitute the environment of a new project and start working with that box as a first way of putting ideas together and developing connections. What I am less crazy about is that she is really, really strict in terms of discipline, a very, very self-disciplined person. And while that is a quality I admire, more recently I've been having trouble adhering to strict disciplines because my health hasn't allowed me to do that, and when I pushed myself, I crashed. And so I'm having to find new strategies to keep working and to keep being creative despite these limitations. But I think it is still a treasure trove, and that there is so much to take from this, even though you might need to adapt it. And I admire her single focus on the creative life and how that is the center of what she does, and everything revolves around it. The next one I have reviewed in my previous video, I'll put the link above, is Danny Gregory's The Creative License. And this is all about giving yourself permission to draw and illustrate your life. And Danny Gregory works with illustrated journals, and the book itself looks like an illustrated journal. And that's something I really like, because every page is so inspiring just in and of itself before you even start reading it. And he gives you lots of potential exercises and talks about what materials you use, how to approach the idea of creativity, how to try different things, drawing on the street, drawing different elements of your house, like the contents of your cupboards. Whatever you are able to do, you will find ideas in this book. He encourages you to draw in a journal or a notebook so that you don't throw everything away. And I think for me, that's been a major part of how I draw. I don't allow myself to erase anything. I draw directly with ink. And I keep notebooks so that I can't throw everything away and start again and again. And so that encourages me to draw more and accumulate a sort of a portfolio of sorts, even though it's a personal one, not one that I share. And yeah, Danny Gregory is to be credited for giving me that freedom to just go for it. These are my 5 favorite books on writing and creativity. I hope you find something to like. Let me know if you have a favorite, whether it's one of the books I mentioned or another one that you think I should have mentioned, and I would love to hear about that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Bye!